You know, one of the only things that I had remembered about this movie before I saw it again was that there was just a bunch of those little honey teddy bear things, and I always thought that they were the coolest little things. And anytime I've seen those things since, I literally only think of this movie. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Today our movie in the middle is the Spiderwick Chronicles.
The Spiderwick Chronicles.
The Spiderwick Chronicles is the adaptation of the kids series following three kids as they encounter magical creatures in their new house and fight off goblins trying to steal a magical field guide from them. It stars Freddie, Highmore, Sarah Bolger, Seth Rogan, David Strathairn, Mary-Louise Parker, Martin Short, and Nick Nolte. So we are back to September, which of course means, as you know from the last couple years of videos, that I watch a lot of fantasy movies and talk about fantasy movies. And this year I wanted to start with one that not only had I not seen it in a really long time, but there's a bunch of movies that I want to talk about at some point just in the future of the channel that I'm basically calling like childhood movies that people have probably forgotten. A lot of them happen to be fantasy, but in general, there's just a bunch that I feel like are like lost gems that we've almost forgotten about, but they were big childhood movies. And one of them is the series of unfortunate events, but that I'm not going to do until I actually finish the series, like the whole series, because I'm reading through it. I'm about halfway through it now, but that is one that I will get to. But the Spiderwick Chronicles is one that I almost forgot about, and that's crazy because this was probably one of the first, if not the first fantasy movie I saw as a child that wasn't Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings based. And having so much knowledge of Harry Potter at that time and what that was like, this was a nice change of pace just because it was different. Obviously, there's still all these fantasy elements to it, but I really liked how the whimsy and wonder felt in this one, and also the fact that it feels a little bit more fall-esque, you know. It's like kind of a remote house in the middle of the woods. You got this fall vibe to it with the leaves and everything, but also it just has different creatures. It has a different feel to it, and I really like the creature designs in this one, specifically Thimbletack. It's a very cool, kind of like Incredible Hulk aspect to this very tiny mouse-like creature, which you wouldn't think would have anything to do with that kind of intensity. But this was probably also the first exposure I had to fantasy where it was a lot about, you know, things like fairies, you know, and the sort of very celestial side to that. Like, there's some very beautiful sequences in this where there's fairies, there's little creatures that come out of, like, they look like flowers. You know, once you put them all in a bouquet, people are kind of whisked away by, like, rose petals and, you know, flower petals and things like that. There was just a lot of this very sweet fantasy that I don't think I'd really seen. But on the other side of that, I actually do remember finding this one to be a little scary. You know, it was I mean, obviously Harry Potter is dark, but there was something about this one that did feel a little bit scarier at times. And obviously when you're a child, you feel things a little bit more viscerally, even in, you know, a movie that if I watched this today, I'd be like, yeah, there's some pretty kind of scary horror stuff in there, but I wouldn't be like absolutely terrified out of my mind. But, you know, when I was a kid, I was like, wow, there's has some horror elements to it, and it's pretty creepy. And honestly, I think 90% of that is due to the main villain, the ogre Molgarath, who, honestly, on a rewatch just a couple of weeks ago, I gotta be honest, I was still a little scared by him. He's a really well-designed villain, and the performance and voice by Nick Nolte just goes to enhance that. I don't know what it is about it. It seems like it should be generic. Maybe it's because I'm just remembering it from when I was a child, but it is pretty scary. But I also think that this sort of darkness that I felt from it also came from the emotional side as well. Emotionally, it is a little dark in spots. Not as dark as Bridge to Terabithia, but I'm not going to get into that one. Because there is a lot of sad stuff in here, specifically with the kids' relationships to their parents, because the parents are split up, and, you know, the main character, Jared, thinks that his dad is going to be coming to see them, and obviously the dad is with somebody else, so that's not going to be happening. And those realization moments and, like, the being angry at the parents and saying, I hate you, all of that was, like, it was really sad to see that as a child. That might have been one of my first exposures to that kind of thing. Especially when you get the scene where the dad actually comes in, but it's not really the dad. Then wait a second, is that Andrew McCarthy?
The next time we met, you had something you needed to say to me. So, What is it? I just want to hear you say it.
I think it's hilarious that out of all the people they could have casted for this role that's about 2 seconds long, it was just Andrew McCarthy. That is a very emotional scene, and the scene where he realizes he's not coming back. But I thought all the acting was great as well, especially from Freddie Highmore, who's always been a good actor. And he has to do 2 roles in this one. It's kind of one of the first ones I ever saw that had twins in it, where it was the same person playing 2 twins. I think the only other one that I had seen with that kind of thing was Parent Trap, both the new and the old. In all of these movies, it's always impressive, but it's so impressive in this one how you can have a lot of shots that have both of them in there, and it's just seamless. I'm always so impressed about how they can do that, and you can never tell that there's like a line in there to split the screen or anything. It was just really well done, and Freddie Highmore plays both roles so well that, like anybody who does twins very well, you forget that it's the same person. They really do feel like 2 distinct people. Sarah Bolger, I forgot how much of a badass she is in this one. I forgot that she does like fencing, and she kind of, she's the older sister, so she has to sort of take charge. But I really like the relationship between Jared and Mallory specifically, like all the siblings. It's kind of this cool dynamic that is in most of these kids' movies where the parents don't know what's going on and it's just the kids and they got to try to convince the parents, but they're bonding because of this weird experience. But their relationship was very cool. I liked the development there. And of course, David Strathairn, he was just made for this role. He's just got that kind of wise researcher vibe about him, specifically with fantasy, and he absolutely seems like that kind of guy who's like quirky enough, but also smart enough to put together a field guide of magical creatures, and that voice is unmistakable. Anything that he's in, you're like, that's David Strathairn, because he's just got this kind of sort of soothing, wise cadence to his voice, and I love him in anything that he's in. My only low for the movie that I found after rewatching it was that it's just a little bit quick. It's like an hour and 27 minutes, and I feel like they could have stood to have an extra 10 or 15 minutes in there, even just 10 minutes, just because it feels like they sort of are speeding through a lot of the plot points really quickly, and they have to have a lot of exposition very quick. And trust me, it's a pretty well-paced movie for the most part. It just feels a little bit fast, and like they have to squeeze in a lot. Like, I haven't read the books yet. Yes, I know, I have them, but I didn't read them.
Read it. I own it. But no, I have not read it.
But I can tell, just from watching it a little bit, that they were taking a lot of these books and squeezing them into one movie. Again, it's not really that noticeable, but I can slightly tell just by having not read the books. At least it worked out better than last time Nickelodeon tried to cram too much into a movie.
My name is Ang, and I'm the Avatar. I ran away, but I'm back now.
But yeah, so I just wish it was a little bit slower. They just took their time a little bit more, but honestly, it's not even that big of a deal. So overall, I love the Spiderwick Chronicles. I think it's one that is just like this, like I said before, a lot of these movies that I think are just hidden gems that we forgot about. But if you like fantasy movies, even if you're already an adult, this one is one that you should definitely add to your watch list. A lot of these fantasy movies, I'm like, as long as you give me something a little bit different, I'm probably going to like it because it's fantasy. That's already a score for me. And this is definitely one that, especially having watched it as a kid, I remember so much viscerally about it that probably does help. But I just love this one. I love the world, the feel. I want to know more about it. I know that there is a series on Spiderwick Chronicles that I never saw with Christian Slater in the role as Spiderwick. It honestly seems like perfect casting as well. I know it didn't do too well, but I'm probably going to check that out. And yes, I will at some point check out the entire series. Once I'm done Unfortunate Events, I will probably go to Spiderwick for my catch-up on childhood books that I never read. But when it comes to the movie, I'm going to give the Spiderwick Chronicles a 3.5 out of 4. Well, guys, let me know what you thought of the Spiderwick Chronicles if you've seen it. And if you've seen the show, let me know what you thought of that as well. And as always, keep your hopes high, your stress low, and movies right in the middle. I'll see you guys later.